Hey everyone, it's Alexander the Real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. So do you guys remember when this was supposed to come out this weekend? Yeah, me too. But, life didn't go as planned this year, so we're gonna have to wait till April of next year to find out all the big questions that trailer gave us. Like, how is Han back? How is Vin Diesel able to swing a car like Tarzan? Why did Lucas Black decide to photobomb 1 second of that trailer? All those questions will be answered when we eventually see the movie next year, so in place of an actual review for Fast 9, I decided to, just like I did with Black Widow, rank the other movies in this franchise. So without further ado, here's my ranking of all 9 Fast and Furious movies that are currently out now. Number 9. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. And I think this is a no-duh for anyone that ranks the Fast and Furious movies, because this one is terrible. It's terrible, and admittedly, it's the first Fast and Furious movie I saw ever, so this was not a good first impression. There are some things that I like about this movie. One, the music by Brian Tyler is pretty cool. I just like seeing Tokyo in general. And this movie also introduced Han, which is one of the coolest characters in this entire series, and then kills him off right away. Or so we thought. Again, we'll have to wait till next April to get the answers. But outside of that, this movie literally has nothing to do with the rest of the franchise. It has no reason for existing. It has no reason to be released in theaters at all, because this is the Fast and Furious equivalent of those direct-to-DVD American Pie sequels. They're incredibly pointless. You don't understand why they even exist, but they're there, and we just have to accept the fact that they are there. Number 8. Too Fast, Too Furious. That title. Anyway, moving on. This movie isn't as terrible as Tokyo Drift is, but it's still got a lot of problems to it. A lot of the acting in this movie is pretty bad. I'm not a fan of the new characters in this movie. There's something about the plot that just is pure nonsense and doesn't make any sense. And the biggest problem for me, and that I'll address in the next movie on this list, is that the thing that made the first Fast and Furious work so well was the dynamic between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. With having one of them without the other, the movie just kind of loses its magic. And the dynamic between Paul Walker and Tyrese in this movie just does not work, at least in this movie alone. And a lot of people make jokes about this being a gay action movie, because when you see how these two characters interact with each other, they are like a couple, and it's not really all that subtle. Not a very good movie at all, but at least it's not Tokyo Drift. Number 7. The Fate of the Furious. That pun, again. I've reviewed this movie before, and I've talked about why this movie just doesn't really work for me, and much like with Too Fast, Too Furious, this movie just really doesn't work because without Paul Walker, Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto is just not all that interesting of a character. And I know there were tragic events that led to Paul Walker not being in this movie, but it just really doesn't work altogether. The only saving grace of this movie here was Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, because both of these guys really understand what the series has become at this point. They are absolutely goofy, over the top, and both these actors know how to work that tone, and they play off each other so well. The rest of the supporting cast is fine, but the big plotline with Vin Diesel basically betraying his family is played so seriously that it's laughable in its own right, but not in a good way. And then also Charlize Theron could have been a great addition to the series, but her character and the way she plays her is just terrible. Like, it's a Razzie-worthy performance right there. And I'm honestly scared if she's gonna act the same way she did in this movie when Fast 9 comes out. But we've still got until April, so hey, anything could happen. Number 6. Fast and Furious. This is where we get into the Fast and Furious movies that I actually enjoy more. This movie is not really a great movie, and actually, it took me a while to see this movie because it has the lowest score on Rotten Tomatoes. And then when I saw it, I'm like, well, it's not great, but it's definitely the closest thing to a Fast and Furious movie since the first one. The dynamic between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker works incredibly well, and again is the reason why the first movie was such a big hit. The racing scenes are a lot of fun. I like how this movie ends up being a prequel just so we could make Han alive again, which was a fantastic decision. There are some goofy moments here and there. There are a lot of elements in this movie that just don't work, but this movie is closer in spirit to what the Fast and Furious franchise should be, and I think it's a lot of fun, all things considered. Number 5. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. Considering that Fate of the Furious' best moments involved Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, it was a no-brainer to make a spin-off with these two actors, and in my opinion, this movie is just all kinds of fun. It's a traditional buddy comedy with two actors that really understand the goofy nature of this series and just have fun with it. And I'm honestly surprised that this movie is as frowned upon as it is, because I feel like this is the direction the series should be going from here on out. I know Vin Diesel started it all, but he's honestly downgraded this series to a point where it's just no longer fun. Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham make these movies fun. And sure, there are some annoying moments in this movie, like Ryan Reynolds' cameo just doesn't work. There's a lot of continuity errors with this movie and the last. Like, why are Hobbs and Shaw arguing with each other even though it seems like they were best friends in the last movie? There's just stuff that doesn't make sense, but it's got all the goofy, over-the-top action that the later movies have established themselves for. The dynamic between the two characters is good, even though they are this close to making out. And Idris Elba actually proves to be a cool villain. He has the same motivation as Thanos, but Idris Elba managed to work it, and this movie's a lot of fun in my opinion. Number 4. Fast and Furious 6. This was the first Fast and Furious movie I saw in the theaters since Tokyo Drift, because after watching the first 3 movies, I just realized it wasn't my thing. But 2013 was the year I started this channel, and so I wanted to try to go out and see as many movies as possible. And I actually did a double feature of The Hangover Part 3 and this movie. And I don't know if it's because I absolutely hated The Hangover Part 3, but I had a blast with Fast and Furious. It was a little hard to follow considering that I didn't see Fast and Furious or Fast 5 prior, but it was still a ton of fun. It just breathed new life into the franchise for me and honestly got me into these movies. I mean, I don't think they're all great, and Fast and Furious 6 definitely has its very over-the-top moments, like the sequence with the tank on the bridge, the sequence where Dominic Toretto catches Letty in mid-air, the 27-mile-long runway with that giant cargo plane. I'm just like, guys, there's breaking the laws of physics, and then there's twisting and bending the laws of physics to the point where they are screaming and begging for mercy. And that's what Fast and Furious 6 ends up doing. But still, it's a lot of fun. Maybe it's in the context of how I saw the movie, but it honestly was a better comedy than The Hangover Part 3. Number 3. Fast 5. This movie usually tops everyone's list of their favorite Fast and Furious movies. And while I think this movie is good, and it's definitely important in the franchise, I honestly can't agree that it's the best. The biggest problem I have with the movie is that in the middle, it just drags like crazy. And it's supposed to be a heist or team movie, sort of like Ocean's 11 or Mission Impossible. And while there's some good chemistry between the actors, they do not have the level of charisma that the actors in the Ocean's movie or the Mission Impossible movies have. And so that middle drags like crazy. But when the movie is entertaining, it is damn entertaining, even if it does break the laws of physics. Between the opening sequence where a bus trips over a car and flips 3 times with prisoners who are not strapped in and miraculously no one's killed, to the big finale where our heroes are dragging this giant safe with cables that could not support it and cars that again, could not support it. But still, it's a ton of fun, and the fact that this movie is the introduction to Dwayne Johnson's Luke Hobbs, is enough to keep me distracted from all the dumb logical choices in this movie. I think it's a tad overrated, but me saying that this movie is overrated doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just, in my opinion, there are 2 other movies in this series that I think are better than Fast 5. Speaking of which, number 2. The Fast and the Furious. The one that started it all. And honestly, it's weird to watch this movie just seeing how the series has evolved to this point. But this is a very nice treat of a movie. And sure, it deliberately rips off Point Break. I mean, you pretty much replace the surfboards with cars. But it's still a lot of fun. The dynamic between Paul Walker and Vin Diesel works really well. The driving sequences are incredibly well done. There's actually some good performances here and there. I like the music by BT. It's not a great movie, and I wouldn't say any of the Fast and Furious movies are actually great in the grand scheme of things. But considering the type of movie that this is, I think it's still pretty good. And it's also nice to fall back on this movie every now and then, just to remember the humble roots that this franchise started with. Now, all that being said, the most grounded movie in the series is not my favorite, but that honor has to go to number 1, Furious 7. Why is this one my favorite of the series? Well, there are many answers to that. One, it's the movie that has a nice balance of that old school street racing that the franchise started with the incredibly over-the-top and goofy action that Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6 established. Even though Justin Lin didn't direct this movie, James Wong manages to bring a lot to the table. And all the action scenes with the cars are actually inventive and well thought out. There's actually some sort of logic behind the car sequences. Like the crew driving cars that are built up to be muscle cars by the government and falling out of an airplane. That's pretty cool. But when you get to the human-on-human action scenes, that's when the laws of physics start to really break once again. But still, the action scenes involving the humans have just enough goofiness to where it feels like they're in on the jokes. So I can enjoy those scenes because of how goofy they are, especially when Vin Diesel just stomps his foot to the ground and an entire parking garage caves in. There are some problems with this movie. For one, I think it's a little too long. The sequence between Dubai and going back to Los Angeles in the finale drags for a bit. Luke Hobbs, my favorite character in this entire franchise, is out of commission for a lot of it. Up until the point where he just decides that his arm is fixed, so the way he takes off his cast is to flex it off. You can't make this stuff up. So it's definitely got some moments where I just kind of roll my eyes. But again, Dwayne Johnson understands the type of movies that they are. And the biggest thing that makes this my favorite of the series is the send-off that it gives Paul Walker. All of the movies prior to this one, or even after this one, have never gotten some sort of emotional response from me. But that send-off at the end of the movie for Paul Walker, it's very touching, it's very tasteful, and it just made me go, man, say what you want about Paul Walker as an actor, but I'm gonna miss him. Like, he seemed like a really cool guy. And the brotherhood relationship that he has with Vin Diesel in these movies definitely helps elevate them. Which again leads to why I think the second and eighth movie are among the worst films, because that dynamic is no longer there. If Furious 7 had been the last movie in the series, it would have been a fantastic way to end it. Because there really isn't any more story to tell with Dominic Toretto and his family, and the series could have gotten a soft reboot with Hobbs and Shaw. But, I mean, we got more movies. I'm admittedly excited to see what Fast 9 can deliver. I hope it's better than 8, but it's not going to top this movie. Furious 7, for all of its problems and for all of its goofy moments, it's still my favorite of the Fast and Furious movies, and the one movie in the franchise that I can recommend if you're not into these type of movies. And there you go, that's my ranking of the Fast and Furious movies. I hope you enjoyed this list, and now I want to know what you guys think about this list. How do you rank the Fast and Furious movies? And is my list drastically different than yours? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media. And until then, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one